So speaking of Ghislaine.
Miss Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You've been doing a little research.
Yes. So, let's break the fourth wall a little bit here. Brace and I were planning on a big episode on Ghislaine.
Yes.
And we still are. And we have some stuff to talk about with Ghislaine. But what's really crazy is the wormhole you get into.
Mm-hmm.
And you start looking into stuff with Ghislaine. And then, of course, her dad, Robert. And then her sisters. And that's where we maybe got a little off track.
Yeah. I wish I was being pushed off a yacht right now. Because that would simplify my life immensely.
So let's start with Ghislaine.
Christmas baby.
She was born on Christmas.
You know who else was?
Jesus.
Himself.
She was born on Christmas Day, 1961, allegedly.
From her lard-ass father.
Brace, you know a great deal about Robert Maxwell.
Robert Maxwell at this point was 900 pounds and 5'4".
Didn't they call him the Beast?
Yeah, it's funny because he was really handsome and charming and smooth. Let's back up here a little bit about Robert. He was a Jewish man, much like myself, and then that is where the similarity ends, I assure you. Born in Czechoslovakia, which also became Hungary. It's like one of those regions between in Mittel Europa that changed hands quite a few times. He fled to Britain during World War II. Joined the British Army, became an officer, possibly committed a war crime by killing an unarmed German officer, which he was being investigated for. No harm, no foul with that one. Fine with me. Everyone he knew, I believe, was killed in the Holocaust, and he started despising Hungarians. That is besides the point. He was smart because he brought up basically all these German technical manuals immediately after the war ended and started Pergamon
Press. Yeah, we're going to talk about them a little bit later.
And made a bunch of money off of that, and then created this giant publishing empire, ruled it like a tyrant, started looking like shit immediately after Get Rich, with much respect on that, because I would too, and became basically a rival to Rupert Murdoch, often actually called, and I hate to say this, the socialist Rupert Murdoch, because he was once a Labour MP.
Yes. So he married a woman named Elizabeth Maxwell. Betty, as they called her.
Oh, yeah, that's generally what you shorten Elizabeth to.
Yeah, Elizabeth, no relation, described her husband as, quote, bullying, unfaithful, and frequently absent.
You know, she died in poverty.
Yes. Due to, we'll talk about Robert's death in a minute.
Yeah.
So they had 9 kids.
My man.
9 children.
Robert, Bobby Bustin.
Ghislaine, Ian, Kevin, Isabel, Christine, they're twins. Karine, Philip, Anne, and Michael.
So Karine died at 3.
Yes.
And
one of the brothers.
Brothers?
So actually one of the brothers, he was, I think he was 13 when Ghislaine was born. But 2 days, this is so crazy, you guys. 2 days before Ghislaine was born, he was in a car, her brother was in a car accident, immediately in a coma for 6 years.
6-year coma?
6-year coma, and then...
My God.
Yeah, and so apparently...
Punished Maxwell.
Betty Maxwell,
yeah,
Mama Ghislaine, says that Ghislaine developed anorexia as a toddler to deal with the horror of her brother's coma.
Wait. Anorexia as... She is the most advanced woman known to man.
I mean, it's that... I've never heard of that.
How do you develop anorexia? That's just not eating because you're like, no, food's gross because I'm a baby.
Yeah, I don't think babies really have that. I know, it's very strange.
She's trying to it's that's gross. Also, how are you even affected by a coma of someone you never met when they were not in a coma when you're a toddler?
I know, it's all very... Well, I mean...
She must be an empath.
But also, if you've got absent parents,
Yes. And Robert
not a lot of physical... I mean, if the mother is distressed, you don't have a lot of physical contact with the mother, that can be very, that's imprints on the child.
Happened to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My mother was a drug addict.
Oh, baby Grace.
So Robert was quite busy around that time fucking everything that moved. In his he had like a Trumpian like gold
Ugh.
like penthouse basically that he screwed everything that walked in.
Yes. Apparently, well, I guess Ghislaine was Robert's favorite daughter. Mm-hmm. Much to the most likely chagrin of the other daughters.
I would assume that would not make them happy.
Yes. Who were about, I think, about 10 years older than her at the time.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's...
He sounds like a real patriarch. In all senses of the word.
Classic. He would make Ghislaine... They found actually a letter from her to him. He would make her go to these parties and then write up reports about what everyone said about him afterwards.
Yeah, he would interrogate all of the kids at the dinner table, like at their manor in England, grilling them about geopolitics and foreign leaders and what was going on in the news.
I guess we would be a little remiss not to mention exactly what his relationship with some foreign leaders was.
Well, that's the thing. So he was a, quote, publishing tycoon.
Yes.
And he was.
He was.
And he definitely was an MP in Parliament. Mm-hmm. But as we've alluded to and talked about on the show before, Robert Maxwell was also what some have called a super spy.
Yes. He was basically... So the way it works in intelligence is that there are agents and there are assets. And Maxwell blurred the lines between those. First of all, he basically financed Israel's beginning Air Force in 47. He got him the planes.
Huh.
Which is...
Yeah, that's a little...
kind of early for him, too.
Yeah.
And then worked for them as just we'll do a whole episode on him later. Because we
want to get into the kids.
Yeah, but he was a prolific spy.
Yes.
Possibly also was the person who lured the whistleblower on the Israel's nuclear program, who went to England, lured him back to the embassy, had him black bagged, taken back to Israel's secret closed-door trial.
Oof.
Yeah. Buried, well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so he, which we've mentioned before, he died basically in the midst of almost bankruptcy, a bankruptcy scandal.
Oh, yeah, that's almost an understatement.
Yeah.
He had actually, because he was a super rich guy, right?
Yeah, until he wasn't.
Yeah, but
very
yeah, he
weird,
was
too.
running out of money, and he was possibly also threatening Israel with exposing a lot of their secrets if they didn't give him if they didn't basically bail him out, which may have been why he was pushed off the yacht. Excuse me, fell off his yacht.
Well, that's the thing. So yeah, in 1991, he was found in the ocean, out off the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
And they said off of his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after his favorite daughter. Mm-hmm. And there was a real question. Even the New York Times said fell or pushed.
Yes.
Although some speculated suicide because of the nature of his financial situation.
And his financial situation was this. He was ripping off everybody's pensions. There were no pensions anymore anywhere in his empire.
Oof.
Not for everybody, but for almost everybody. You can actually listen to, there's some, I think, Witness BBC shorts about, was one of them about a journalist who kind of got ripped off by him, which just was in his empire. But yeah, he took hundreds of millions of dollars from his employees.
So when the New York Times was reporting that his death, they said, meanwhile, colleagues who knew of telephone conversations Mr. Maxwell had from the yacht with family members and business associates in the hours before he died expressed bafflement, saying there was nothing in his manner to suggest he was distressed or acting oddly.
Does this remind you of something, my fair lady? I seem to recall a certain other Jewish I should just say billionaire.
Financier.
Remember, I'm Jewish, so it's okay. It's just a certain other financier, billionaire, who was in high spirits before his sudden, mysterious, and convenient demise.
Yes, it sounds a lot like the reporting around Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Israel gives him a state funeral.
Everyone gets that.
attended by the country's political elite, and he was buried on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem.
With military honors, I believe.
Oh, boy.
Or maybe it's just state honors, but regardless, it's...
So part of Maxwell's newspaper empire is actually the New York Daily News.
Oh.
And so it's interesting because a lot of reporting around Ghislaine says that she, in the months after her father's death, is when she left Britain to move to the States to start a new life.
On a Concorde jet.
Yes, on a Concorde jet, yes. But actually, some reporting at the time kind of paints a different story, which says that Robert actually asked her to move to New York to sort of establish the Maxwell name in New York society to kind of like gin up support for the newspaper.
Yeah, he was pretty big.
And get information into the papers, into the gossip pages, society connections, etc.